There are moments in life when something inside you whispers quietly but unmistakably, something isn't right. It's a strange sensation, almost like waking up in a room you've lived in your whole life and suddenly noticing a door you never saw before. This first chapter begins in that exact moment, the moment you sense there is more to reality than the version handed to you since childhood. From birth, you inherited the world without questioning it. You accepted the rules before you understood the game. You followed paths long before you learned you could create your own. And every step of the way you were nudged, shaped, guided, not by sinister forces, but by the quiet machinery of society, family expectations, cultural beliefs, and the deep fear of standing alone. These pressures blend together so smoothly that most people never recognize them. They don't need chains to hold you. They don't need walls to contain you. They simply need you to believe that the world is exactly as you've been taught to see it. This is the warning you were never supposed to hear. You are not living your life. You are living the life you were programmed to accept. This realization arrives like a shockwave. It challenges everything you thought you understood about freedom, choice, and identity. Because when you look honestly at your decisions, the job you chose, the dreams you abandoned, the fears you carry, you begin to see patterns that never belonged to you in the first place. You start noticing how much of your life has been spent reacting instead of creating, surviving instead of living. That's when the unease grows. Because once you sense the invisible structure shaping your reality, you also sense the weight of it pressing against your mind. You recognize how much of your perception has been molded by influences you never agreed to. Most people turn away at this point. They retreat back into comfort, into routine, into the familiar illusion. But you didn't, because here you are reading this, seeking more, questioning the cracks in the story you've been living. This chapter ends with a simple truth. Awakening doesn't begin with light. It begins with discomfort, the discomfort of realizing that the world you trust may not be the world as it truly is. And once that discomfort begins, there is no stopping what comes next. Before you ever formed your first memory, before you understood language, before you could even speak your own name, the blueprint of your mind was already under construction. Piece by piece, belief by belief, layer by layer, an internal architecture took shape, a structure built not by you but around you, and unknowingly you grew into it like a vine growing inside a cage. This is the part no one ever tells you. Your thoughts are not entirely your own. The way you react to conflict, the things you fear, the dreams you chase, the limits you place on yourself, all of it is built upon frameworks silently inherited from the people, environments, and stories that raised you. Family taught you what was acceptable. School taught you what was realistic. Society taught you what was normal. And every time you absorbed these ideas without question, another wall went up inside your mind. This architecture becomes so familiar, so deeply integrated, that you mistake it for identity. You think your preferences, habits, and beliefs are self-created. But in truth, most of them were designed long before you had the capacity to examine them. You were trained to doubt your intuition, trained to fear judgment, trained to believe that freedom means fitting in, trained to chase approval instead of authenticity. The structure grows stronger each time you obey it. Eventually, it becomes a cage with invisible bars, bars made of assumptions like, I can't change. That's just how I am. People like me don't get to do that. It's too late. It's too risky. What will they think? But here's where the story begins to shift. Once you become aware of the architecture, you no longer live inside it unconsciously. Awareness changes the game. You start noticing how automatic your reactions are. You see how fear disguises itself as logic. You realize how many of your limits were inherited, not chosen. And with every moment of awareness, the structure wavers, a wall cracks, a door appears, a window opens, because the moment you question a belief, it loses its authority. The mind's architecture, once seen, no longer controls you from the shadows. You begin to reshape it, redesign it, reclaim it. This chapter ends with the truth most people never discover. Your mind is not a prison. It is a blueprint. And blueprints can be rewritten. There is a voice inside your mind that speaks with perfect confidence. You've heard it your entire life. It comments on your decisions, questions your dreams, criticizes your choices, and warns you whenever you stretch beyond what feels familiar. It whispers in moments of doubt, shouts in moments of fear, and quietly shapes the direction of your life without ever revealing its true identity. Most people assume this voice is me. But what if it isn't? This voice is not the real you. It is the echo of your conditioning. It is every warning you heard as a child, every rule you were taught to obey, every fear someone else handed you, every limitation you inherited without even noticing. It sounds like your own thoughts because it has been with you for so long. But listen closely and you'll notice something strange. It never encourages expansion. It never supports courage. It never inspires growth. Its only job is to keep you small. This inner voice, this symbolic shadow, is the guardian of your old identity. It is the part of your mind that fears change, not because change is dangerous, but because change threatens the structure it depends on. It cannot survive your evolution, so it tries to stop it. It whispers, "Don't try that. You're not ready. You might fail. People will judge you. Just stay where you are." It convinces you that safety is found in repetition, not transformation. It tells you to avoid discomfort, even if discomfort is the doorway to awakening. It tells you to doubt yourself, even when your intuition is clear. And yet, despite all its resistance, this voice has no real power. Its strength comes only from your belief in it. The moment you pause and observe the voice instead of obeying it, something incredible happens. A gap appears, a gap between you and the thoughts you once assumed were yours. In that gap, you discover the truth. You are the awareness listening to the voice, not the voice itself. This realization is the beginning of inner freedom. Not because the voice disappears, it won't, but because you no longer mistake it for your identity. From this moment onward, the voice becomes something different. Not a master, but a signal. A signal that you are approaching the edge of your comfort zone, the edge of your growth, the edge of the life you were meant to reach. And the closer you get to awakening, the louder the voice becomes, because it knows its time is running out. Awakening rarely arrives with thunder. More often it begins with a subtle shift, so small you almost miss it. A flicker in perception. A moment where something feels off. Not in a frightening way, but in a revealing one. It's like the light in the room changes, even though the bulb stays the same. One day, without warning, the world seems to hesitate. A second hangs longer than usual. A familiar routine feels strangely unfamiliar. A thought arises that stops you cold. Why have I never questioned this? This is the moment the illusion cracks. You may be standing in line, washing dishes, staring out a window, or scrolling through your phone. But inside you, something shifts. Awareness expands. You suddenly sense the thin veil between your daily life and a deeper truth beneath it. You notice the automatic patterns of your mind, the mechanical nature of your reactions, the loop of thoughts you've lived inside for years, and for the first time, you see them from the outside. It feels as if you've stepped out of your own identity for a moment. Not dissociation, but clarity. A quiet separation between you and the story you've been living. The illusion doesn't shatter dramatically. It simply loosens. Your old beliefs, once unquestionable, begin to soften. Your fears, once heavy, feel lighter when seen from a distance. Your struggles, once overwhelming, appear as patterns instead of destiny. You begin to see life as if watching from a higher vantage point. Nothing around you changes, yet everything feels different. People's behaviors become transparent. Your own reactions become understandable, and the world appears less like a fixed reality and more like a moving dream. This clarity is both beautiful and unsettling. You realize how much of your life has been lived on autopilot, how many choices were made unconsciously, how rarely you truly saw the moment you were living in. And once you see this, once the illusion cracks, there is no sealing it back together. This moment marks the beginning of a deeper journey, a journey where awareness grows brighter than the stories you inherited. A journey where your old identity begins to dissolve like fog under sunlight. A journey where truth whispers louder than fear. Because the illusion doesn't resist being seen. It simply waits for the day you finally look. When the illusion begins to crack, something unexpected rises to the surface. It's not fear, not confusion, not even doubt. It's memory, not memory of events, but memory of being. A faint recognition that somewhere beneath all the layers of conditioning and survival, there is a version of you that you abandoned a long time ago. This is the moment when you feel the presence of the self you lost along the way. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You sense the spark you had as a child, when curiosity was natural, intuition was clear, and imagination flowed effortlessly. Before you learned to shrink, before you were taught to be careful, before you traded authenticity for acceptance, but life happened. You bent yourself to fit into expectations. You silenced truths to keep the peace. You hid your depth because the world feared it. You replaced your inner voice with the opinions of others. Piece by piece, the original you faded. In its place grew an identity built from responsibilities, roles, labels, fears, and experiences, all necessary for survival, but none of them the fullness of who you truly are. This constructed self has lived your life for years, maybe decades. It shaped your personality, it navigated your relationships, it made decisions on your behalf. And because it felt familiar, you mistook it for the real you. But now, something deep within you begins to stir. The old version of you, the one that was quieted but never extinguished, pushes through the cracks. You feel it in moments of intuition that come out of nowhere. You feel it in sudden clarity that cuts through confusion. You feel it in the strange ache of longing. You can't explain a longing, not for a place, but for yourself. This emerging self is not new. It is ancient. It is the core of your being, untouched by time or trauma. It watched every choice you made. It waited through every detour. It endured every layer placed on top of it. And now, in the light of awareness, it returns. This chapter is not about becoming someone different. It is about remembering who you were before you forgot. The most shocking truth is this: you never really lost yourself. You simply learned to look away. And now, for the first time in a very long time, you are looking back. There comes a moment in every awakening when something irreversible happens. Not outside you, but deep within. It is quiet, it is subtle, and yet it changes everything. It is the moment you realize you can never go back to sleep, because the self you thought you were no longer fits the awareness you've grown into. This moment doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with clarity. You begin to see how much of your life was shaped by fear. You see how many decisions were made to please others. You see how much of your identity was built from expectations, not truth. And you feel, for the first time, the weight of all the illusions you once obeyed. But here is the strange thing. The clarity doesn't hurt. It relieves you. It feels like stepping out of a dense fog into clean, open air, like removing a mask you didn't know you were wearing, like waking from a long, heavy dream and realizing the world is brighter than you remembered. Awakening doesn't make you someone else. It reveals who you were all along. Your thoughts no longer control you. Your fears no longer define you. Your past no longer dictates your future. There is a steady, calm awareness inside you. Now, a witness, a presence, a higher intelligence that you once ignored but now recognize as your true self. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply watches, knows, and guides. And in this new awareness, something profound becomes clear. You are not here to repeat the past. You are not here to live small. You are not here to survive. You are here to awaken. This realization marks the point of no return, because once you see the architecture of your mind, once you witness the illusion breaking, once you meet the self, you lost and reclaim the truth of who you are. You cannot step back into the old version of yourself. Not because you don't want to, but because you've outgrown it. This is the beginning of a new life. A life directed by awareness instead of fear. A life guided by intuition instead of conditioning. A life lived consciously, courageously, and authentically. The old self dissolves. The new self emerges. The real journey begins now. Subscribe to watch more.